Good Sunday morning. This is the week you're going to get it all right. Everything's going to go perfectly. It's week 3. Your fantasy football teams are about to crush it. I am just a beacon of optimism because it is time for Fantasy Football Live. I'm sitting with some of the best experts in all the land. They're going to help you get there. We are going to make sure all the way up to kickoff that your rosters are set. Matt Harmon, your level of confidence this morning. How are we feeling, buddy? We got a little swaggy walk coming into the show?
You got a lot more confidence than I do. I certainly feel good about a handful of these games, but we have some real chaotic situations we have to talk through today, too, including my first point that I'll get to in storylines here. So your level of confidence is admirable, Fitz, but I don't know if I necessarily share it.
That's because I'm the idiot in the room that thinks it gets right every single week. Chris Allen, how are we feeling this morning, bub?
I don't understand why Harmon has any lack of confidence in what we saw over the past couple of weeks, because if I'm thinking back to my old math classes and geometry classes, 2 points determine a line, fellas. So we've got those 2 data points after 2 weeks. So after that, we should just be able to project everything forward, and that's all we need, right? So week 3, we know how things are going to turn out for all the wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. I mean, we saw everything we need to know. So I'm sitting pretty because after the past couple of games that I've seen, that's all I need to see. We're good for the rest of the season.
Justin Boone, every week I see the Flutie Flakes behind you, and every week I wonder, is the box full or empty? That's what America really wants to know. Are there actual Flutie Flakes in the box?
There are actual Flutie Flakes in that box. I hope there's not mold all over them, but there are certainly unopened Flutie Flakes inside of that box, and I never want to find out what it looks like in there. I'm also just super pumped for this week, like the guys are saying, because for me, like projections-wise and everything, 3-4 weeks into the season is when stuff starts to come together. So we're going to get a ton of new data points this week. So let's get to it.
You guys can get involved. All you got to do is use the hashtag AskFFL. Hashtag AskFFL on Twitter X. Send your last-minute roster questions in. Drop a comment in the YouTube chat. I'm keeping an eye over here on the side on that also. We're going to do everything we can. I will give the guys a big, huge shout-out. One of the joys of what I get to do is I get to watch them work. Everybody's been hammering it all morning to get ready for this show. So let's get straight to it. Actives, inactives. I know that's what you need to know right now. And we've got some names out here. Tucker Kraft, active. Emeka Ibuka, active. Jackson Smith and Jigba, questionable. Zach Charbonnet, doubtful on that one. And we'll get you another page of actives and inactives. That's right. We're only 2 weeks in, but we have this many. Juwan Jennings, questionable at this point. We'll get you a little update on that one in just a moment. DeAndre Swift, questionable. Xavier Worthy out. Isaiah Likely out. That's right. All of these rosters are being confused across the way. And we just got this. Adam Schefter just tweeted this out moments ago. According to his sources, 49ers wide receiver Juwan Jennings listed as questionable for today's game versus the Cardinals due to shoulder and ankle injuries. Will not play, will be out. Remember, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy also will be out due to his toe injury. Adrian Martinez will back up starting quarterback Mac Jones. That feels like just a level of fun I don't know everybody wants to have. Boone, how are we feeling about the Jennings news?
I mean, I'm glad that we got it before the 1 p.m. kickoffs because we were talking before the show trying to figure out whether he was going to play or not. And sometimes when it's a later kickoff, you don't get that news this early. So it's good that now we know, get him out of lineups. We're going to bump Ricky Pearsall way up. Not that much else going on in the 49ers receiver room that we're really going to want to use for fantasy. Just tons of injuries there, but it makes Pearsall such a great start this week for sure.
Harmon, real quick, reception, perception. I always love your wide receiver insights. You backing that up? Is there somebody else in San Francisco that suddenly you're saying, yeah, go get this guy instead?
No, not really. I mean, Kendrick Bourne is back in the building. He has familiarity with the team. I think he can play a nice role here. But as Boone said, the real fallout here is just like Ricky Pearsall way up. He's like had one really good game in week 1. A solid, game that you could take in fantasy in week 2. But to me, I think there's a lot more upside here for him, especially with Juwan Jennings out. Like, really, there's no, keep your eye on this sort of deep sleeper here. They're just kind of waiting until Brandon Ayuk can get back, which he's at least running in practice. So there's at least that.
Well, we're off and running right now. Let's get to some of the top storylines, what we are keeping an eye on in week 3, what to watch. And Justin, Boone, we will start with you. Boone, what do you got for us?
I think, don't we all want to know when these rookie running backs are going to turn the corner? And again, this is another one of those situations where we're going to get more information on it this week. But this is probably one of the biggest disappointments this season. Yeah, I don't want to drive home the Ashton Genty point, but he is definitely on the list of these guys. At least he's getting the volume, right? At least he's out there and starting. Not all of them are. Like when you talk about Omarion Hampton, now we have Najee Harris starting to eat into his workload. We have TreVeyon Henderson, who looked great in the preseason, and yet He is a backup, and last week he got the third most touches in that backfield. RJ Harvey is a backup to a veteran right now. Like, there's so many of these guys. And then we're also hearing news like Cam Scatterbu last week. He started to come on, and now there's a report this morning that looks like he's going to get even more work. It's a tough matchup for him this week, but we'll see if he can just totally establish himself as the starter there. Vashal Tutin, obviously looking good, getting more opportunity. He dealt with an injury this week, but he's going to be out there and fine for this game. So we want to see these rookies start to take on more. And I just want to remind everyone, like, this stuff can change so quickly. We saw on Thursday night, Ollie Gordon, he went from having 2 or 3 touches per game in the first 2 contests to 9 touches and a touchdown on Thursday night against the Bills. So these things can change. Rookies can get more involved very quickly. And let's hope some of these guys actually do.
So you're telling me there's a chance. Harmon, what do you got for us as your top storyline?
Yeah, we have 5 backup quarterbacks starting this week. We got to the 5 backup quarterbacks are starting rather quickly here this season in terms of the phase of the programming. Let's just quickly run through all 5 of these guys. We have Carson Wentz in Minnesota, who is going to become the first player in NFL history. Great stat from Bill Barnwell this week. The first quarterback in NFL history to start 6 straight seasons with 6 different teams. That is pretty wild. No idea what to get from there, although sometimes when we say it can't get worse, that's usually what people say right before it is about to get worse. But like from an adjusted yards per attempt standpoint, drive success rate standpoint, the Vikings are, right there in terms of second or last in the league. So maybe it can't get any worse with Carson Wentz, at least from a fantasy football perspective, for a couple of weeks. In that very same game, we have Jake Browning starting for the Cincinnati Bengals. Certainly lowers the ceiling for the offense, but I think he can maintain a floor. Marcus Mariota is going to go up against the Raiders today for the Washington Commanders. I'll talk about him in just a moment, so put a pin in that. Mac Jones once again starting for the San Francisco 49ers. I thought Mac played pretty well, all things considered, last week, and is somebody that can get the ball to Ricky Pearsall and Christian McCaffrey, which is basically all we care about. And then lastly, Tyrod Taylor is making an appearance here for the New York Jets. This might sound harsh with the way that Justin Fields played last week. If I was planning on starting Garrett Wilson this week in fantasy, Tyrod Taylor's presence doesn't really change the equation too much. In fact, I think he could actually just run the offense pretty smooth here and, again, get the ball to the one guy we really want to see get targets in that offense, which is Garrett Wilson. So 5 backup quarterbacks. Again, we got to this really quickly into the season, but I think that's the biggest storyline this week.
Yeah, and a reminder that 50 quarterbacks started, 50 quarterbacks last year in the NFL. So backup quarterbacks are just part of the journey. All right, I'll give you a storyline I got my eye on, and it's what in the hell are we doing with the Eagles passing game? I think we get a little bit of a prove it moment here, right? The Rams have allowed the 7th fewest PPR points to wide receivers in the NFL so far, but don't get it twisted. They took on Houston and Tennessee, who caught 64% of their targets, and neither of them really scare the lights out of anybody. What scares the lights out of me, though, is that this is who the Eagles are. They don't really care about fantasy. We know that. They don't really care about over-unders. We know that. They care about going out and finding ugly ways to win. And I feel like last year it didn't take long before we were talking about A.J. Brown reading a book on the sideline. And now we're sitting around watching a team that just beat the Chiefs, which is a huge part of why we think the Eagles are so good, but they did it without really throwing the football. So what will we see this week? There's an opportunity every single time. And this is what I think kills all of us. If you just look at the talent in the room, the Eagles have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL. They're just not afraid to not use that room if that's the way they think they win football games. What gives here in a matchup that we know has so much consequence to the playoffs and the way we view the Rams, but particularly will also tell me a lot about how we view the Eagles and how they will use their passing game moving forward. Chris Allen, what do you got as your favorite storyline this week?
So for me, I'll take back what I said at the intro, because I do have some questions about some of the teams that gave us uneven performances across week 1 and week 2. Because let's go back and think about how the Lions opened up their season. Micah Parsons completely wrecking shop. But then in week 2, we saw Jared Goff throw multiple touchdowns. It's the Amon-Ra St. Brown show, and even seeing Jameson Williams mix in for a deep touchdown. So does Jared Goff just need more time? And now in week 3, going up against the Ravens, they're also back half the league in terms of pressure rate. Nnamdi Madubuike is also supposed to be out for the Ravens, I believe, in their primetime matchup for this week. So could we see this Detroit offense continue to take off like we expected to, even without having Ben Johnson pulling the strings behind that offense? But then also let's switch over to the Giants. We watched Russ cook in week 2, and will that continue in week 3 against a Kansas City Chiefs defense that I don't know, fellas. I kind of have some concerns. The Chiefs right now, while they are top 3 in blitz rate, they're not really getting home on those types of pressures. So could Russ continue to cook, especially having Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, deep threat Wan'Dale Robinson, on the back end of those passes? It's entirely possible, but that's where I have some, let's say, questions to see if that's going to continue to operate, or that's how they're going to continue to operate in week 3. And then finally, what is from the KC side of things? I mean, Fitzy, you were just talking about the Chiefs and also how they played against the Eagles. Can this Chiefs team turn things around? I'm not going to say because they're 0-2, they're going to be out of the playoffs. We've heard the stats, but can we continue to see this passing game evolve? I know they don't have Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy out this week, but can Hollywood Brown be their wide receiver one, at least their pseudo wide receiver one that they're hoping to? And after seeing Cooper DeJean, also like thrash Hollywood Brown last week, and all of that, can this Chiefs team turn it around? So they're going to have to, I mean, I believe they're going to figure it out, but without a solid running game, not really seeing anything from Isaiah Pacheco, I mean, I do have some concerns. So those are the teams that I'm watching after, I would say, again, uneven performances in week 1 and week 2.
If the Chiefs fall to 0-3, the absolute chaos of media tomorrow will be hysterical. Okay. Unlike some AP college football voters that don't care about rankings, our very own Justin Boone cares immensely about getting it right. So we're going to let our resident rankings expert take a little bit here. He's got to get the final tweaks in before kickoff. He'll be back. He's going to break it all down shortly. But now, let's get to some last-minute pickups. This is what you need. There's still a chance to grab some of these guys off the wire right now. Play them this week. So last-minute pickups. Matt Harmon, what do you got for me?
If you are somebody that's hurting for a quarterback, one of those 5 guys that we talked about earlier, Marcus Mariota, is somebody that I think can really help you in a revenge game against Fitzy's Raiders here. No, but on a serious note, it's funny. Well, all those 4 of those 5 guys, obviously Wentz excluded, we've seen take snaps for their team here that they're going to be suiting up for on Sunday, including Marcus Mariota. Mariota had 2 games last season where he replaced Jaden Daniels in game and threw double-digit passes. That was week 7 against the Panthers and week 18 against the Cowboys. Mariota was obnoxiously efficient in both outings. He averaged 10.1 adjusted yards per attempt and had a 60% success rate. Obviously, the small sample, of course, but that success rate right now would rank behind only the best quarterback in the league, Daniel Jones, with a big second gap to Brock Purdy at 56.1%. Mariota had 45.6 fantasy points with over 90 rushing yards and a touchdown in those 2 games. So it's a good matchup. It's an offense that fits him, and he's shown himself to be capable in that offense. So if you need a quarterback starter, I think that Marcus Mariota, pick him up right off the waiver wire, stick him into a lineup. I will say I have personally done that on a team that lost Joe Burrow this week.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. Mariota's legs can extend plays, and that's a bad secondary in Vegas. So that's a good call by you. Chris, what do you got for somebody that you'd like as a last-minute pickup?
So for me, I'm looking to the wide receiver position, and for folks that are looking to have that boom-bust type of option at their flex spot or even their wide receiver spot, let's talk about Troy Franklin. And I'll say it's my fiduciary responsibility to recommend Troy Franklin for week 3, just given his production in week 2. We saw him have over 80 plus yards. He got into the box. And of course, we know about his connection to Bo Nix from their time spent in Oregon. So all of those things are positive, right? And we're also seeing how much he was used in week 2 also lends itself to having a wide receiver, a big-bodied wide receiver, 6'2" frame for Troy Franklin as your wide receiver option for week 3. 30% target share, over 40% of the team's air yards. I mean, all positive peripherals that you want for a wide receiver. But I'll caveat a lot of that just by looking at how much he was running in week 2 compared to week 1. 90% of the routes didn't really see him used as much in week 1. And also 3 of his 9 targets were used on wide receiver screens. I mean, also 42 of his 89 yards from week 2 were on a busted play down the left sideline where, I mean, he sprints past the corner. I mean, Bo Nix run it out to his left, flicks it downfield. Wasn't really a corner in sight until the safety caught up to him. So it's just a lot of his production was, I would say, gadgety. Now, not his usage, but I would say the production was something that we cannot project on a week-to-week basis. And so now going up against the Chargers, I mean, they have had the 9th lowest explosive pass rate allowed through 2 weeks, 5th lowest in yards per pass play. It sets up as not the best matchup for Troy Franklin, but given his level of opportunity so far through a couple of weeks, you could do worse.
I'm only going to hear the Inspector Gadget theme now every time his stat line comes up. All right, Matt, give me one more guy that you're looking at from the waiver wire.
Yeah, I'm going to use this moment to just highlight the fact that Tyler Allgeier's 39% rostered rate in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues is outrageous. It's way too low. It needs to be higher. Yes, like if you do need a running back this week, I actually will make the case that you can get by with Tyler Allgeier. But on a big picture scale, anything happens to Bijan Robinson, like we know Allgeier is good at football. We've seen him produce. This looks like a good rushing ecosystem where once again, they're very efficient on these zone concept runs that fit Tyler Allgeier's game. So he should be like 100% rostered so that you're not fighting with the other sheep on the waiver wire. If anything, knock on wood, happens to Robinson. But in this matchup today against the Carolina Panthers, who put a lot of resources into fixing their defense, don't look like they've gotten a lot of results so far through 2 weeks. This is like we saw last week when Atlanta thinks they've got the matchup, they will just sit on the ground game and pound that thing. And Tyler Allgeier can get in the mix. We saw him get in the mix for a touchdown last week. So you got to be like really hurting at running back in week 3 to think about starting Tyler Allgeier, or you faded the position in drafts. But I do think that you can like squint and see an outlook for him to be successful today, but in the long term, he's got to be on fantasy benches right now.
All right, boys, let's check the chat. Know a lot of you guys are watching on YouTube. Obviously, thanks to everybody watching on Yahoo Sports Networks as well. We got a bunch we're going to get into. I will quickly say there's one here that I just think is funny that I'm going to read out of the blue for our guys.
Oh, boy.
And it comes from Patrick, who says, I was audio only, but I know that was Matt Sy after Deep Threat Wandell mentioned. Just saying, Matt, the chat knows. I'm just saying that's why you guys are the best. All right, so let's get some of the chats
Love
coming
you
in.
guys.
Armin is the first one, or Armin, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, says, could you rank the wide receivers in the Chargers-Broncos game? Harmon's input would really save me in my home league. I have Keenan, Sutton, and Franklin. So, Harmon, ranking the wide receivers in the Chargers-Broncos game, off the top of your head, what you got?
Yeah, I think I will still go Ladd McConkey at the top here. Yes, he is the wide receiver 1, but he's not going to receive shadow treatment from Patrick Surtain because he actually leads the team in slot snaps right now, and Surtain has mostly been a perimeter corner. Quentin Johnson could end up being the guy that gets a lot of Patrick Surtain, which is why I'll probably have him second to last year, but we'll get to that in a second. I still think I'll go Keenan Allen as the second guy. Again, this is a pass-heavy team. So then third would be Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton is always going to get the hardest routes on the field. You know, perimeter press man coverage is the X receiver. A lot of downfield stuff, but I think I'll still go him. Then I will go Quentin Johnson. Again, it's a tough matchup. We know he can be a volatile player, but pass-heavy team, he still should get like 5-6 targets in this game, bare minimum. And then I'm with Chris. I'm very interested in Troy Franklin, but I also know that Sean Payton has rug pulled us before about his role players. It wouldn't be surprising if he goes from leading the team in routes last week to like third this week. But I do like what I saw on film from Franklin, so I want to have him on benches. Don't think he must be started in this game.
Inspector Franklin. That's what I'm going to do now. Jordan Johnson asks, I never know who to really start for wide receivers because I got CD, who is automatic. Then I got BTJ, Ladd, Tet, Ricky. All right, Chris, what do you think? He's got BTJ, Ladd, Tet, Ricky.
Champagne
tough
problems
decisions every week.
Yeah, that's first world problems right there. But I 100% agree with Harmon there that Ladd should be the first player out of the gate past CeeDee Lamb that you would want to start, not just from a target share standpoint, but the matchup sets up really well because we've seen Denver secondary and previous teams try and hammer a lot of those types of routes that Ladd is going to be he's going to be running, whether from the interior or across the field, things of that nature. So I'm with that. Who are the other guys real quick?
He had BTJ, Ladd, Tet, Ricky.
Tet and Ricky. Now, with the Juwan Jennings news, I do think Pearsall does kind of jump up from there, but I will still give this to BTJ. Better days ahead for him from a usage standpoint, and I know that there were a lot of business decision remarks after their game against the Bengals, but from an air yards and also routes run standpoint, I do think now that the target should potentially condense around him. It's going to be a tough matchup. He should see a lot of Derek Stingley, but I will say that I do like that particular I do like his usage here, or do like his opportunity rather for week 3.
You guys are hammering the chat right now on YouTube, which we absolutely love. We're going to get into a bunch of these questions, but coming up next, we got to get into a feast. It's never too early to fantasy feast, and there will be a feast happening at Soldier Field. We'll tell you about it when we come back on Fantasy Football Live. I love any sort of a matchup that gives us chaos, no matter what the result is. And we are going to have that when we get a fantasy feast. That's right. We've got Dallas going to Chicago. FFL, we're breaking it down for you. And look at this game here at this point. You got the Cowboys a 1-point favorite. You got the over and under of 50.5 on this. A lot of points could be in there. So let's take a look at this matchup. What stands out to you, Matt?
Oh, man. I mean, number one, you're right. This is an absolute fantasy feast. Two defenses that have struggled through 2 weeks. Two offenses that have a lot of players that we care about. But I would be intellectually dishonest if I didn't tell the people out there that the one player I care the most about in this matchup, and frankly, like the one player I might care most about being successful across the entire league, basically for my reputation, is Rome Odunze. And through 2 weeks, baby, we are feeling good about Rome Odunze's season. So far, he is 12th in overall team target share among all pass catchers. He is 15th in air yard share. He has clearly led the Bears in both categories. And like that alone tells you that he's the guy in this team in terms of the passing game. But more importantly than that, and frankly, like more importantly than the fantasy points and the production, which have been good, 3 touchdowns through 2 weeks, it's that like watching this Bears offense and charting him and things like that, you can see that he is being set up from a route concept standpoint to be the guy. He's moving all across the formation. He's playing outside. He's playing inside. He's running these big in breakers that are the basis of the Ben Johnson offense. And Caleb Williams didn't really take those throws in week 1. He did take them in week 2. I think he will take a lot of them in week 3 here against this Cowboys zone heavy defense with problems at cornerback. So I'm definitely starting Rome Odunze here. And frankly, like he's left some plays on the field through the first 2 weeks. So there's even more plays for him to make here. I'm very, very excited about what I've seen from Rome Odunze, not just for this week, but for the course of the season.
I share your excitement. I'll give you somebody else I'm excited about in this game and for the season. This isn't a hot take. George Pickens is absolutely on fire. And here's the thing to me, guys. Like, we can't let a narrative about a team become something bigger than what we're seeing from individual performance. Like, it is so easy for people to sit there and say, what's wrong with the Cowboys, no matter what the Cowboys do? Well, you know what? There isn't anything wrong with George Pickens and his production. He's not a number 2. He's a number 1, and he's playing a number 2. And now he's taking on a Chicago defense that's 28th overall, 22nd against the pass. They are going to double CD. In fact, Schottenheimer, the coach of the Cowboys, even acknowledged this week that they expect the doubling because that's what the defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen of the Bears, has done in the past. He always doubles CD. What's that going to give you? It's going to give you one-on-one opportunities for George Pickens. I don't need to take you that far back. It was a week ago that 2 Lions went over 100 yards. Pickens is going to eat. He's going to eat over and over and over again this year. He's going to eat over and over and over again this week. And I will remind everybody that's sitting here trying to figure out why the Cowboys are broken. While their defense has sucked, their offense has been great. And their offense is going to continue to be great. They're going to put up big points. I love Pickens in this matchup. I love Pickens in this year. Chris, give me something you like.
Guys, I just have a question for you. What does Javonte Williams need to do to earn our respect? Does it need to be more games over 20 fantasy points per game or something like that? Because I'm looking at some of the ranks and how we're valuing him coming into this matchup, and I see him being ranked around guys like Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Jaylen Warren. And if I just mention those 4 guys and then I throw Javonte Williams into the mix, only one of those players is averaging more than 20 PPR points per game, and that's Javonte Williams. Only one of them is averaging more than one adjusted yards per attempt, per contact per rush. And that is Javonte Williams. I mean, he has all of the opportunity relative to the rest of the guys that I just mentioned. And also, let's see, he's playing against the Bears, and let me pull up the ranks for the Bears right now in their run defense. Hold on, I'm scrolling. I'm still scrolling. I'm still scrolling. Oh, right. They're 29th. They're 29th in fantasy points allowed to their running back position, whereas Kyron Williams plays against the Eagles. We know that the Jets and their potential turmoil right now with Tyrod going under center compared to what we might expect with Justin Fields. Chuba Hubbard, of course, he's been getting into the box, but that's been in garbage time. And Jaylen Warren, we don't know how the Steelers are going to react this week now with Caleb Johnson potentially being out or not being used as much. So it's like we're projecting with each of these guys, but we don't have to project with Javonte Williams. So my question is, again, what does he have to do to earn our respect? And right now he's got it for me. So I think it's Javonte Williams RB1 season for sure.
Yeah, and that's what, again, I'm going to keep doubling down on this. When we have conversations about the Cowboys and what's wrong with the team, we also, as fantasy people, have to sit back and say, what's right with some of these guys on a fantasy standpoint? Much different conversation. All right, let's take a look at some bench warmers. We're talking about surprising players you should send to the bench in early season stashes. So let's start with surprising players you should bench. I know plenty about being on the bench. Chris, what do you got for us as somebody you should bench?
Until I see something different, I'm benching Travis Hunter. I have to at this point. Other than his draft cost and what the Jaguars had to go through in order to acquire him, what's the incentive to get him more involved? Of course, I get the draw. He's got the 4.39 speed, and again, the draft profile and all of that. But it's not really translating to the on-field production that we expected. So how do we continue to see, or how can we tell ourselves a story that he's going to be continued to use in the fantasy ways that are, at least the fantasy relevant ways that we would expect of him? In week 2, routes are down to about 60%, target share down to 15%. Even his average depth of target falls into the short area of the field, around 5.5 yards per attempt. So again, I mentioned the gadgety part earlier. Hunter is moving into that role. It looked like that type of role for him in week 2. Now, I admit that the Jerry Jones injury, the Jaguar starting corner, that's what forced a lot of the increased defensive snaps for Travis Hunter in week 2 against the Bengals. But if we're also seeing similar production from Parker Washington, De'Ami Brown, Brenton Strange, each of them from not just a target share standpoint, but from an on-field productivity standpoint, with the number of first downs and how many times they're allowing Trevor Lawrence to continue to move the chains. Again, where is that gap, or where is that void that Travis Hunter should be filling from a pass game standpoint? So until we see things shake out differently, and we're already trying to project more work for Brian Thomas, how does Travis Hunter continue to get involved? So until I see more from him, I'm trying to keep him on my bench for right now.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure the Jags are any good right now. They have a win over a terrible Panthers team, and they lost to the Bengals with the backup quarterback. So lots still left to be proven in Jacksonville. Harmon, give me somebody that right now you are benching.
Yeah, Amarian Hampton right now I think is somebody you don't have to run out and bench, but you can certainly consider it this week. I have one Amarian Hampton team, just one, and I'm going to put in Jordan Mason over Amarian Hampton this week because, look, I mean, there's just things that he needs to prove. I think there's a lot of look, the Chargers are a pass first team, period. Been saying that on this show, been saying that on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast for weeks now, even dating back to last year when they were very pass heavy once they got out of their bye week. This is the identity of the team. The identity of the team is not the kind of boomer ball, we got to establish the run just to do it, just because Greg Roman has called plays like that in the previous iterations of his offense. Justin Herbert and the receivers are the identity of the team right now. So Hampton's not just going to get a bunch of carries just to establish himself there. Also, this matchup against the Broncos is not ideal. The interior of the offensive line has definitely been a little hit or miss. They just look more like a team that can be pass first. And Hampton himself, I think, has to prove that he can just be patient, identify the lanes, and take steady carries. I think he will hit a home run at some point. Maybe it will be this week, but the whole thesis of Hampton and why he got steamed up draft boards, besides good player, first round pick, was that Najee Harris missed all of training camp. That was going to give Hampton a runway to really just go with that job. And I think at this point, that runway has been lost based on the production from the first 2 games. So you don't have to bench Amarian Hampton, but if you have a better option, I think Jordan Mason's a good example of a guy that went way later and is now going to be a workhorse for a team that has shown a little bit better from a rushing production standpoint. I would consider sticking him on the bench this week and waiting for better days.
As much as we've talked about Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton both, let's point out that both of those running backs were getting hit in the backfield before they could even get the football sometimes in that Monday night matchup. So a lot of problems there. Let's go to an early season stash. Chris, who do you got? Somebody right now, don't tell your friends, don't tell your enemies, don't tell anybody, just stash them off to the side.
Well, for me, it's going to be the Titans wide receiver 2, or maybe even 1B, depending on how you look at his usage so far. And that's Alec Ayumaner for the Tennessee Titans right now. Back-to-back weeks, 20+% target share, air yard share, over 30% in both games as well. So while I think his profile right now, or way he's being deployed on field, is a bit more volatile, his average depth of target has been 10+ yards in both games. I mean, this is also in 2 contests where Cam Ward faced the most pressure from a defensive front standpoint. Over 30% of his dropbacks, he was under duress. But Ayumaner was the second most targeted wide receiver for the Titans when Cam Ward was under pressure. So it shows that level of connectivity between the rookie quarterback and, of course, the rookie wide receiver as well. So while I'm stashing him this week, I'm not trying to at least stash him with the intent of trying to start him this week. I have seen a number of questions about starting Ayumaner in some leagues, especially with the Juwan Jennings news. But I'm looking at the Colts, while they are 4th, they have the 4th lowest pressure rate. I'll give a hat tip to former Bengals DC Lou Anarumo. He has been frustrating to quarterbacks so far. Week 1, we saw just a complete dud from Tua Tagovailoa, 126 passing yards. And even last week against Bo Nix, 140 passing yards to the Denver passing game. So I'm stashing A.O. Maynor for now, with better days ahead for the Titans passing game and Cam Ward, and of course, A.O. Maynor as well.
All right, Matt, give me somebody you're stashing right now.
Yeah, I'm taking a different approach here from Chris and going with somebody that was definitely drafted, but I want you guys to hang on to here and just stash him away and see what happens. That's rookie running back R.J. Harvey of the Denver Broncos. Boone talked about this at the top. The storyline right now, one of the biggest ones in fantasy football, is like, what's going on with these rookie running backs? But what's going on is veteran deference and patience, and that patience is what I think you guys need to have for some of these players. And I think RJ Harvey's a great example of one that right now it's not looking great, but I think over the course of the season, he can continue to get more work. Like if I'm looking at the non-Hampton and Genty players, who's someone that I think could have the smoothest path to rise over the course of the season, I think that is RJ Harvey, because one, it's still an offense that is about 10th or 11th in yards before contact per rush attempt on their running back runs, which is very different than Genty and Hampton. Like this is still a good rushing ecosystem. And I like what I've seen from J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins is a good player, but he's also missed time with injury. So there could be a moment sooner than later where you're starting RJ Harvey. So don't get frustrated and drop him, even though the production hasn't been there. Stick him on your bench and just see what happens over the course of the season.
Yeah, we need to sort of recalibrate as a society and realize that, maybe young players and rookie players can't be judged after 2 weeks of football. Maybe it takes just a little bit of time. Just let it cook a little bit. All right, let's get some rankings. We'll get an update now. We're going to bring back in Justin Boone. Boone's been working on breaking ranks, figuring out who's moving in the rankings, where and how. Boone, you've done all the math. You've done everything that we're not smart enough to do. Now figure it out for us. Break all of the rankings for us. What do you got? Somebody that has changed in the rankings.
Well, the first one is the guy we talked about off the top there, Ricky Pearsall, moving him up to wide receiver 24. You could probably make an argument to move him up even higher than that. Juwan Jennings didn't practice all week. This wasn't like super surprising that he wasn't going to play today, but it looked like it was going to be a game time decision. Now we got that info. And really, like Harmon was saying off the top, there's no one else there, right? Like Kendrick Bourne, sure, he could have a game. MVS is also on the 49ers now. He could catch a long pass, but this is going to come down to Ricky Pearsall catching a ton of balls, going to get a lot of volume. And we saw in the first game, he was over 100 yards in that contest. He has that kind of potential. This is why they drafted him. So I really, really like Pearsall this week.
I just still love the concept of looking at some of the best excerpts. Like, who else? And it's like, nobody. That tells you something. All right, give me somebody else that's breaking ranks for you.
The one thing I forgot to mention, too, the Cardinals secondary is so banged up. Ton of injuries there. So that's yet another reason to play Ricky Pearsall. Hollywood Brown up to wide receiver 33, and you could move him up even higher as well. It's just a scenario where Xavier Worthy's trying to come back from that injury. Rashee Rice is not back yet. And who else are they going to throw to, right? They have Juju Smith-Schuster, not really going to get that involved. Tyquan Thornton, like the ultimate reclamation project. Could he catch a long pass? Of course he could. But we saw in the first game what happened when Hollywood Brown was healthy. 16 targets in that contest. Last week, he was dealing with a bit of an ankle injury. He was on the injury report this week as well, but practiced in full the whole time. Should be a little bit healthier for this one, and it's a much better matchup. Last week was the Eagles. This week, they get to go up against the Giants. So I think you could look at Hollywood Brown as that like wide receiver 3 with a decent amount of upside if he can get that volume again. And I think there's a good chance that he probably will.
All right, we've got a third slot there. That means you can give me one more that you're breaking ranks on. What do you got?
I normally like going with the positive stuff. This one isn't based on any real news that came out this morning. This one, we got to go a little more negative. Kyron Williams down to running back 20, and that's a lot lower than we're used to seeing him, right? But there's a few things going on here, and one is the matchup going against that Eagles defense. It is a terrible run defense to go up against for fantasy backs, so you always bump guys down when they're going against them. But then we got to think about the distribution of touches. And last week was the first time in a while that we actually saw Kyron Williams give up some work. He went from 82% of the snaps to 70% of the snaps. And that was with Blake Corum taking on a little more volume. And then to make matters worse, after the game, Sean McVay comes out and says, yeah, I want this to be a 65-35 split. And McVay had said that a bunch of times over the years. But this one, after seeing the 70% last week, this one seems like maybe it's a real possibility. So bad matchup. A guy kind of eating into his workload a little bit. We're bumping Kyron Williams down to that low end RB2 range.
Yeah, running against that defense is like spitting in the wind. It just comes right back at you. All right, let's get everybody back together. I'm going to keep making spit jokes all year. Hurry up offense. We bring everybody together. We put the clock up, and we try and figure out how many of your questions we can get to. The first one, hashtag Yahoo Fantasy, hashtag make your pick. Who should start? Golden, so who should I start? Golden, since I have Love. Hollywood, since Worthy is out. Or Kirk, first start of season in a revenge game. Thank you. Harmon, what do you got?
Man, you got to have some stones to start Matthew Golden after a 0-catch game last week, but I've seen enough already of Hollywood Brown. No real interest there. Kirk, maybe. I think I might go with Golden, honestly. Just go for the Hail Mary, buddy.
Mr. Left Coast, best coast for sports. We all know that. All right. Big Island Surfer says, Igbuka, Devontae Adams, or Brian Thomas Jr. What's it like being rich, dude? Chris, what do you think?
Assuming no setbacks or we don't have to have, because I think there's an early report about the snap monitoring for Igbuka in this game. I think I'd lean him out of that group. While it was good to see Devontae Adams mix in for 20+% of the targets, and we're hoping for a better output from Brian Thomas, I think I'm still going to roll with the rookie down in Tampa.
All right, that's good. And then we get Richard with the next question coming up. 24 seconds on the clock. Says, with Jennings maybe out, should I start Jamison Williams or Olave? What do you say, Boone?
Man, I mean, it's very, very similar. They're in a similar range for me. It's kind of a coin flip. I go with Jamison Williams and just hope that he gets there for you with a deep ball. I don't really love the matchup for that Lions offense on the road going against the tough Ravens defense, but I'm still going with Jamison Williams because he could have a whole week in one catch. Chris Olave, that's a really tough matchup going against the Seahawks.
All right, we're going to get a YouTube question in here. How about this one? Jonathan Jones, hashtag AskFFL. Strange or Njoku to start? And QJ or Golden in the flex? My brain hurts. Harmon, what do you think?
I'm going to go QJ over Matthew Golden. Again, Golden is basically just purely speculative right now. You're hoping he got loose against secondary last week, just didn't get the connection there from Jordan Love. Maybe that happens. Maybe he gets some more layup routes with Jaden Reed out. From the tight end position, honestly, bro, I really don't care. Those guys are so similarly ranked to me. Like, it really doesn't matter. I would probably go with the guy not playing the best defense in the league, which is David Njoku.
All right.
Don't play David Njoku is what I'm saying. Yeah, don't. My bad.
Don't play. Just don't. There we go. We got it definitively. All right. Hashtag AskFFL is what you keep coming in the chat and on Twitter X. We're taking a bunch of your questions. In the meantime, coming up next, another victory lap for me. God, it feels good. Is Danny Dimes actually QB1? Woo! Woo! Is it possible? We'll tell you next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live here on Yahoo Sports. Jason Fitz, Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone hanging out with you all the way up until kickoff. Plus, our very own Scott Pianowski just nestled in, settled in. In my mind, he's got a nice little Americano and a bathrobe and a pipe. He's going to be hanging out, getting all your questions answered on Twitter X. He's just lounging, getting your last-minute questions. Just use the hashtag AskFFL. That's the way you get into it. In the meantime, let's take a look at some of the most talked-about players in the fantasy app this week. Brian Thomas Jr., 4-star matchup in the rain on the road versus all-pro coverage, light reps due to injury. I don't know about you all, whatever Yahoo analysts are smoking, but I'm fine benching him this week, Joseph says. Joseph, only one of us is smoking anything. It's me, and you're not taking my opinions on this. So there we go. Also, Brock Bowers catching it. Brock Bowers is fine. The low-scoring day was due to Geno Smith enjoying getting sacked more than throwing the ball to an always-open Bowers. Sam, I'm wearing a Raiders shirt, and I watched it. If you thought Brock Bowers was fine in that game, I want some of what you're smoking. He was obviously a shell of himself, but still did his best to compete. All right, you can get involved in the conversation. Just click on the Discuss tab. It's really cool in the Yahoo Fantasy app, Discuss, and then you can get involved in it. Let's get to locking some things in. Lock it in. This is a matchup-proof player in Week 3. Matt Harmon, who you got as matchup-proof?
Yeah, this isn't so much about a bad matchup, although the Eagles are playing a Rams defense that can be very tough up front and is difficult from a pass rush perspective. But I think this is like the last week I'm willing to lock it in with A.J. Brown just on the fact that he is A.J. Brown. So through 2 weeks so far, if you have A.J. Brown in your fantasy teams, I don't need to tell you it has not been enjoyable so far. 17.5 yards per game, not ideal. However, week 1, he can say whatever he wants, and far be it from me to tell oh no, you actually aren't healthy. But he certainly didn't look like himself in week 1, even though he is insistent that he was totally fine. It was just a bunch of zone coverage from the Cowboys in week 1. I don't buy into that. I think that he did look a little bit like a shell of himself. Week 2, I thought he looked much better. They were a little bit more proactive in terms of getting him the football, but it's just they didn't have to do very much to beat a Chiefs team that is very lackluster on offense right now. On the other side of the field, the Rams are looking awesome on offense. And I know the Eagles' defense is good. I know that they established the hell out of the run last year with Saquon Barkley in both of those matchups with explosive runs, but I think they're going to need A.J. Brown to win this game against the Rams, are the Eagles. So if it doesn't happen this week, then I think we have conversations about, whoa, the panic meter is very, very high for this Eagles passing game, but I'm willing to lock in A.J. Brown for at least one more week here.
Yeah, you're right. The panic meter will go through the roof if we get another one of those performances. Chris, what do you got for us? Who you locking in?
So for this week, I know, Fitzy, you've been the prime person pushing Daniel Jones, and I'll look at his wide receiver 1 for this matchup here in Week 3. Michael Pittman, now looking at the other pass catchers for the Colts, Tyler Warren has got the toe injury. He had a DNP earlier on in the week, but now he was limited throughout the rest of the season. He should be active for this game. Josh Downs, ankle injury, DNP to start the week, but full practice, so he should be there. So it's just, there are some injury concerns in terms of the reps that could potentially happen for the rest of the pass catchers. Now let's look at Michael Pittman. Over 20+% of the targets so far through 2 games, 6.5 targets per game, but also it's where he runs his routes that I'm most concerned about, or at least has me thinking that we have a shot at a potential ceiling game for Michael Pittman. We watched last week, whereas Devontae Adams, hitting over the middle of the field, 29.2% middle of the field target rate so far for Michael Pittman. And so if we can see where both Adams and even Cortland Sutton back in week 1, hammering a lot of those middle of the field targets that Michael Pittman likes to run on. We've seen him used on some of those sail routes, those concepts that Shane Steichen brought over from the Eagles. I can see where Michael Pittman getting over on the Titans secondary, which has been allowing the most yards per game to wide receivers on play action concepts, should be that guy you can lock in for Week 3.
The Titans are not good, but let's remember they could have beaten the Broncos, and they were in it with the Rams for the first half. So we'll see how that one goes. Boone, give me one more that you're locking in here.
I'm going Justin Herbert against the Broncos. We normally look at that Broncos defense like it's this really tough matchup you're going to have to downgrade players against, and some you still do because, it's true, they're allowing the 3rd fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks right now, but that's also mostly because they just destroyed Cam Ward in week 1. Last week, Daniel Jones, we were questioning what he was going to be able to do in that game. Over 300 yards on them. He found the end zone through the air. He found the end zone with his legs. I know another guy that could do that and could do it even better, and that's Justin Herbert, a slightly better version of Daniel Jones. Just a little bit, I think we would say, right? I think this is also the best collection of talent that he's had around him in a while. Harmon mentions it constantly. This is a passing offense. They're going to be able to throw here. And the last time he played Denver, he finished as the QB7. I think he's going to be a top 7 quarterback again this week.
I love these takes. They're everywhere. This is amazing. All right, Matt, Boone, you guys get to, Chris and I get a break. We're going to go have our own Americano sit in a row for a minute. You guys can take care of some fantasy face-off for us.
Yes, it is time to talk about Daniel Jones, the #1 most added player in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues this week. Let's stack him up against some similarly ranked players here and decide if we're playing Daniel Jones or someone that was actually drafted in leagues this year. Boone, let's start off with Drake May, New England Patriots quarterback. Who do we like better? Daniel Jones on an outrageous hot streak, or Drake May coming off a pretty nice performance himself in week 2?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one, but like I mentioned in the last segment, like seeing what Daniel Jones did against the Broncos gave me a ton of confidence that this could be sustainable. And yet I got to go with Drake May here because in week 1, we had some questions about him. In week 2, he comes out, looks like the player that before the season we were hoping he could become. Harmon, you and I have talked about it, right? Last year was a really, really high fantasy floor, but we wondered, can he unlock that like high fantasy ceiling? Last week, that's exactly what he did. So I'm going May here, but it is very, very close. I look at them both as low-end QB1s this week.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way as you do here. Both low-end QB1s, but I'm going to go with Drake May here as well. I like a lot of some of the, I know people are upset about the Travion Henderson stuff, but I liked a lot of the wrinkles I saw about the Patriots offense in week 2, a little bit more creativity, a little bit more motion. And that Steelers defense is living off reputation right now. That is not a unit that's looked good. That's a unit that's looked old and slow through 2 weeks. So don't just look at that and think like, oh, I can't play Drake May. I would play him in this matchup over Daniel Jones. Let's get to another guy here. This is Bo Nix, Denver Broncos quarterback. Are we playing Daniel Jones or are we playing Bo Nix here in week 3?
I mean, Bo Nix was a little more productive last week, but still 4 turnovers through 2 games. Doesn't look as smooth so far this season. Now he gets his toughest matchup yet going against the Chargers. So I'm actually going to go Daniel Jones here, looking competent as a passer and a runner. And they're using him as a rushing option around the goal line. I think that's one area where we didn't necessarily bake that in before the season. 3 rushing touchdowns already. I think the Colts are going to control this game. I think that's going to be a good thing for Jones because he'll really get tested when teams can knock him out of his comfort zone. I don't know that he's going to get knocked out of his comfort zone in this game. So I think they're going to keep things rolling here, and I would go with Daniel Jones.
I'm with you. Tough defense to play against in the Chargers. And I'm not going to say I'm discouraged from the Broncos offense, but I thought we'd see a little bit less of the training wheels so far through 2 weeks here with Denver and Bo Nix and Sean Payton in year 2. Still kind of a rather simplistic passing game. So I'm hoping they open it up a little bit more, but this is not the week to do it. So I actually think clearly I would go Daniel Jones here and his wealth of pass catchers that he gets to throw to. Final one. And Boone, I don't want to spoil this, but I think this is the toughest one to call for me. Daniel Jones versus Kyler Murray. Who are we playing in week 3?
Yeah, I'm torn here. Kyler Murray has not been great this season. It's been like more of the same from him, right? Where it seems like he should have more success, and yet for some reason it just doesn't arrive. Now, against the 49ers, who he's playing this week, he had a ton of success against them last year. Maybe some of that was injury related, like the 49ers defense was a little banged up, but he had a 4-touchdown game against them through the air. In the other game, he had 83 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. So he can have success, and yet I'm still going to lean Daniel Jones. And I can't believe I'm about to say the sentence, but Daniel Jones feels like the safer play of these two. Like we were laughing, Harmon, on the fantasy forecast this week that like Daniel Jones is the weird thing that has brought like stability to that Colts offense. And now we're talking about him being the safer fantasy play. Like, am I getting just way too far ahead of myself with this Daniel Jones stuff?
I don't think you are, and it's less about a Daniel Jones take. It's just like somebody, if you're going to play quarterback in Shane Steichen's offense, you just have to meet the Minshew minimum. I've said this a lot over the offseason. A shout out to Corey Kinnan, who's the one that put me on this phrase. You just got to meet the Minshew minimum because this is a well-designed offense. You can execute it if you just make good decisions and you're a moderately accurate quarterback. Because like when we saw Minshew have success, they basically had Michael Pittman and no one else. Now they have Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce is activated. Josh Downs is getting back involved. Tyler Warren is there. Jonathan Taylor is balling out. So, yeah, I really do think like Daniel Jones just has to not screw it up. And so far, because it's such a well-designed ecosystem. He hasn't screwed it up. I don't think this is going to happen this week against the Titans. So, yeah, I'm with you. I would also play Daniel Jones, and I do think he is safer than Kyler Murray. What a world that we live in.
What kind of timeline are we in? Oh, my God.
I don't know, but you know what? I don't care. I love Michael Pittman. I love Josh Downs. There are other intriguing pass catchers in that wide receiver room. Obviously, Tyler Warren is a beast. I don't care what timeline we're living in. I'm happy that we're in it as long as Daniel Jones continues to do what he has done. 82%. They've scored on 82% of the drives this year. Absolutely nuts. All right. That's enough Daniel Jones love. Let's throw it to Make Your Pick with Fitz and Chris.
There's no such thing as enough Daniel Jones love. I will quickly say, gentlemen, Dan Orlovsky joined us on Yahoo Sports Daily, which everybody can watch on Yahoo Sports Networks from 9 to 11, Monday through Friday. I told him that I picked Daniel Jones to be the comeback player of the year. And he said, look, if Daniel Jones keeps playing this way, he's going to be the MVP. All right, like the MVP stats already coming out. Let's go. We're going to get all sorts of Daniel Jones love here. All right, Chris, let's get to Make Your Pick. We're going to get some scenarios out here from some users and let you make some picks here. First one comes from Kyle. So Kyle says, pick 2 between Wan'Dale Robinson, Cortland Sutton, Jameson Williams, and Juwan Johnson, 1/2 PPR. So what do you got there? Half PPR, Wan'Dale Robinson, Cortland Sutton, Jameson Williams, and Juwan Johnson.
So if this is completely neutral, came out of Thursday Night Football and everything's still 0-0, I will look at this and say Juwan Johnson's probably the first one out of that bunch that I would want to target, looking at his level of usage like in that offense and how well Spencer Rattler has been playing. I'd say he's the first one out of that group. And then after that, let's look at Jameson Williams this week. While it is kind of, I would say, I have some concerns about his usage, and we'll get to that later on in the show. But I think the way that he's being, like this potential, the home run swing that he brings to the game, and then also the game environment itself. I mean, looking at the other matchups or looking at the other games that are projected here. Let's say the Denver Chargers, I can't see the level of scoring that's projected for that particular game being on the same level as what we can think for the Lions and Ravens. And same thing for KC and NYG. So I think it's Jameson Williams. So Jameson Williams and Juwan Johnson, those are the 2 I would take out of that bunch.
All right, let's go next to Pedro, who says full PPR. So we're back to full PPR. Which 2 do I start from this group? Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Jacoby Myers, and DK Metcalf. What do you think?
Jacoby Myers is the first one out of that group that immediately stands out. And I think he kind of flies under the radar as a wide receiver 1 in terms of this level, like his target share, 25% of the team's targets or plus 25% in back-to-back weeks with Geno Smith. And of course, going up against the Commanders secondary that we know can be somewhat porous from a receiving standpoint. So Myers instantly sticks out. And then of course, Boone was talking about it earlier, the uptick for Pearsall with the Juwan Jennings news. I do think that going up against the Arizona Cardinals secondary is one of those standout or the types it sets up as a standout performance for Ricky Pearsall. So while I am somewhat interested in Deebo Samuel, given how much he could be used out of the backfield now with Austin Eckler being out, and we don't know how the rest of the running backs, whether it's Bill Krosky-Merritt or even Chris Rodriguez, how they're going to factor in. I think Deebo is interesting, but I think it's those 2 wide receivers for me.
Well, let's get one more in, and this one comes from Colts Empire, which I respect. It's not Colts Nation. It's not Colts Kingdom. It's Colts Empire. Need to start 1. Ridley versus Indy. Chubb at Jags. Keenan Allen versus Denver. What do you think?
If it's full PPR, I would lean towards Keenan Allen out of that bunch. His level of targets from also seeing the connection there between him and Justin Herbert from his past time with the Chargers. I think he sticks out as the number 1. If it were, let's say, half PPR, I'd be interested in Calvin Ridley going up against the Colts. But like I mentioned earlier, the way that Colts defense has been operating against most passing games so far, no more than 150 passing yards in a single game from any of the opposing quarterbacks. That's where I'm a little bit concerned about what Ridley can do. His opportunity has certainly been there. The production hasn't. So I think it's Keenan Allen that sticks out amongst those 3 guys.
Keep the questions coming in the chat. Hashtag AskFFL. Plus, we've got a bunch of YouTube chats coming in. We will continue to answer them. But coming up next, we have all the bright lights of New York. We got all the bright lights of Kansas City. But maybe it's the bright lights of Hollywood we should be focusing on. We'll tell you about it next. Fantasy Football Live. We have got Sunday Night Football in a dramatic matchup because everybody will be freaking out about the result no matter what it is. Chiefs at Giants, a Chiefs team that desperately needs a win versus a Giants team that people have a little bit of hope on. I don't know. The Chiefs favored by 6. This line has moved a lot over the last few days. Over-under on it is 45. It's an 8:20 p.m. game in East Rutherford, New Jersey. You see it right there. Gentlemen, let's take a look. What are some big storylines you've got your eyes on this one? Chris Allen, what do you got for us?
I'm willing to give Hollywood Brown one more chance. No Xavier Worthy in this matchup, so at least the opportunity is going to be there. But I'm willing to let it ride just one more time. At least from the Chiefs' passing production, at least their passing opportunity standpoint, plus 7% passer over expectation. That's the 4th highest in the league. So at least Mahomes should be passing more. At least we could assume that's going to continue to be a thing. And even for Hollywood Brown in particular, in week 2, while it was something of a dud compared to the 16 targets he had in week 1, he was still tied for the lead, or for the team lead in wide receiver targets. Travis Kelce led with 6. So at least the opportunity should still be there. And of course, he still ran primarily from the slot. Over 40% of his snaps, he ran from the interior. And now he's going up against a Giants defense that's allowed the 7th most yards per game to the slot, 8th highest explosive passing rate from the interior as well. So if this is the matchup sets up well for Hollywood Brown, and also the Chiefs offense is still operating like we expect it to, especially with no running game, I'm at least, again, willing to give Brown just one more chance, because once Xavier Worthy gets back, I'm out.
Harmon gave a little laugh there. All right, give us your big storyline in this one.
Man, people out there, find you somebody who loves you as much as Chris Allen loves like trying to make Hollywood Brown happen the last couple of weeks. I admire it, buddy, and I'm not making fun of you here, but I have absolutely made fun of Wan'Dale Robinson over the last few seasons. And hand up, like he dunked on me last week, and frankly, that's because I didn't see that Russell Wilson performance coming. Like I did not see, even like we talk all the time. Like if you're listening to a fantasy football podcast and you hear the words range of outcomes, like do not play the drinking game with that one, because it is not advisable. I did not think that Russell Wilson game was in the range of outcomes at all. 450 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, what year is this? What are we talking about? Russell Wilson throwing up 450? Like, obviously that says a lot about the Dallas Cowboys defense, but it also says something about what Russ can still do. And if you look at the route charts for Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, which again, I've never seen Wan'Dale Robinson do this in the NFL. It is just go route, go route, go route. And at least from that standpoint, like, there's some sustainability to what Russ did last week. Not the overall production, but last season, 2024, he led all quarterbacks in yards per game on go routes and post routes. So for a Malik Neighbors standpoint, that's instructive. Like, Malik Neighbors can do that every single week. I don't know if Wan'Dale Robinson can do that every single week, but as long as Russ is putting it up on those go routes, I do think that Malik Neighbors can still access that ceiling. He's wide receiver 1 on wide receiver 1 usage. Like, that at least we can take going forward.
You are so right, dude. It was like watching when you're playing Madden against somebody that just sucks at Madden and all they do is throw bomb after bomb after bomb and they complete it. That was that game. I can't make it make sense. Boone, go for it. What do you got as your big storyline in this one?
I want to take a look at these backfields. I want to find out who's the better fantasy option here, Isaiah Pacheco or Cam Scatterbo. And really, we haven't seen that much fantasy-wise from either of these backfields, right? So can they actually get going? From the Scatterbo side, we got the report today that he's going to get even more involved than he was in the second half of last week's game. That really seals the deal that he is the starter on this team moving forward. Tyron Tracy Jr. didn't do enough with his touches early in the season, and then he questioned the coaching staff. So not shocking at all that he's taken a back seat here. But the matchup with the Chiefs is a very, very tough one. That Chiefs run D is strong. And then on the other side, Pacheco, like, we're not seeing him play over 60% of the snaps, which is what before the season we were really hoping he was going to get back to that pre-injury usage. He's not there. He's splitting with Kareem Hunt. And yet in this game, like, I'm kind of interested because the first 2 games he went up against the Chargers run D and the Eagles run D. Pretty tough to go against both those. Now he gets to go against the Giants. Giants allowing the most fantasy points to running backs this year. And oh, by the way, the Giants play in New Jersey. Guess who's from New Jersey? Isaiah Pacheco. He talked this week. It's going to be 50 plus family members and friends at the game. You don't think he wants to come out and have a great performance in this one? We're factoring everything in here. I like Pacheco, but rest of season, I think both these guys are slowly going to rise in their fantasy value.
Yeah, just a reminder for most fans that may not know this, the NFL players do not get free tickets. So when he says 50 tickets, that means he bought 50 tickets. I'm just saying that's a lot. You're getting ball out when you spend that much money to ball out in front of people. Let's get to primetime picks. Speaking of balling out, my God, Boone is out here just slapping us around like my little brother. My big brother used to just hold me back and like hit me in the face. There was nothing I could do about it. That is what Boone is doing to us. He is now 2-0. The rest of us barely belong in this contest. Harmon is at least keeping it close from points, but points are for losers. Yeah, all right, we're 2-0. We're all losers. So here's what we're going to do. You know the drill. We got 3 games that we're picking from, primetime games, and then a big game. So we got Dallas-Chicago. We got KC and the Giants, the Sunday night game, and then the Monday night game, Detroit and Baltimore. Okay, so we've got 3 big games to pick from. We go in snake order in order of our current standing. So, Chris, you're up first. Who are you taking first out of those 3 games? Got to be one of the big, one of those 3 games.
So I'll take CeeDee Lamb right out of the gate. TJ Edwards out, Kyler Gordon out, Jalen Johnson out, Jalen Jones out. I know Boone has some concerns about them double teaming him, but unless Dennis Allen is out there also trying to guard CeeDee Lamb, I'm still going with Lamb first out of the gate.
CeeDee Lamb's a great pick. And guys, I'm just not even getting cute anymore. Ashton Genty killed me last week. I tried to let my loyalty go. It didn't work. Jahmyr Gibbs. Second. I'm just like, this is just simple. Jahmyr Gibbs is there. I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs. That's it. Matt, you're up.
Yeah, I know sometimes I overthink it when I do this, but I'm going to take Malik Neighbors here because I can guarantee the next time it comes around to me, I'm not going to love what I see from that Giants and Chiefs game. And like I said, he's a great pick, even 3rd overall in his own right, because he is the wide receiver 1 right now. He's absolutely balling out. And I think Russ can find him downfield against the Chiefs secondary that has not looked that great so far this year.
All right, that means Boone, you're up. What do you got for us?
Well done, Harmon. That's the pick I would have made for sure. Because, yeah, there's one good player in that game, and you got him. You guys let King Henry fall to me. I got to take Derrick Henry. And I know the matchup against the Lions run D isn't the best, but it's still Derrick Henry. That game is one of the highest projected point totals on the week. The prop market has him at 97.5 scrimmage yards in this game. We know he's always a threat for a touchdown. So got to go with Henry here. And then on the way back around, Rome Odunze, not just the Bears wide receiver 1, but I'm starting to feel pretty confident this guy could be a fantasy wide receiver 1 this season. We're seeing him get a ton of volume right now, and he's going up against a matchup here. I mean, he's the 4th highest fantasy scoring receiver right now, and he's going into this shootout with the Cowboys. That Cowboys defense is terrible. They're allowing the 4th most fantasy points to receivers on the season, so give me Odunze.
Yeah, Matt, you're back up now. What do you got for us next on this one?
I'll go with Amon-Ra St. Brown here. Again, not the greatest matchup in the world. The Ravens secondary is tough, but they're missing some players on that side. And St. Brown showed last week like he can just absolutely go nuts every single week. So I'm not too concerned about the matchup here. I'll take the number 1 pass catcher on the Detroit Lions.
So for me here at this point, I don't have to worry about the Dallas game because Chris has already picked from that one, so I'll pick Dallas on the next side of the term, which means I'm going for KC and the Giants, and, at this point I'm going to the trash heap, but I'm hungry. So I'm just going to go to Kelsey, and I'm going to hope to God. That's it. I'm just going to hope that if anywhere, maybe I can get a trash touchdown for Kelsey. Look, it doesn't feel good, but there's no offense left in this thing that I actually trust. So I go Kelsey, and I throw it back.
That's what I said.
Yeah, you're right.
So at least for me, I'll go to the Ravens wide receiver 1 in Zay Flowers. The Detroit Lions right now, 9th most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position through 2 weeks. And we've seen him really elevate himself into that wide receiver 1 role. Not just the fact that he's the default wide receiver 1, but looking at his target share from Lamar Jackson, he's consolidated a lot of the looks that we would think that will go to Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and the rest of those folks. So Zay Flowers, easy pick for me here, just given what's left. And then now I'll have to put my money where my mouth is and say that Hollywood Brown, come on down. And hopefully in this game, again, I'll give him one more week. And against the Giants, please, man, please catch some more get some more targets, catch some more passes.
Begging.
Just, come on.
Begging.
I'm begging you. I am begging you. Just give me something more than last week.
The best part of that pick is we all knew you were going to go there if it got to you there, and we were all comfortable with that. Like, every single person in the room knew you'd have to take Hollywood. You're like, We're going to do it. We're good with that.
Yeah,
Speaking of, got to be comfortable with your I started this show telling you I'm all in on Pickens. I'm still all in on Pickens. I think Pickens is going to have a wildly huge game. So I luck out here. I don't think that this is necessarily me being good at this game at all. This is just me sitting here saying, wow, it happens to be somehow Pickens fell to me. Thank you so much, Harmon. I appreciate your support as always. So
no problem.
I take Pickens here, and then I throw to Harmon and I say, what do you got for us?
Yeah, speaking of support, I thought Chris Allen made a great argument at the top of the show that the people need to respect Javonte Williams. The guy is just like, it's a good offense that scores a lot of points. The run blocking has been good. It almost really doesn't matter that what the guy's name is. Like, it's a workhorse running back in that environment. You're going to take that guy as a fantasy starter every single week. And I think Javonte's actually played pretty well as an individual. So, yeah, I love this pick in the third. So I love my team, which means it's absolutely going to stink this week.
No, right now on paper, you're kicking all of our ass, but that's what happens every week. And then Justin Boone just comes in and wins. So, Boone, you got the last pick, which has not stopped you from winning yet again. So what do you got for us? You're up last.
I got to hope for a little magic here, but I'm going to go with the guy that I just talked about earlier, Isaiah Pacheco, his easiest matchup of the season so far. That little extra motivation with everybody he knows there. It's going to probably require a touchdown or two for him to get me over the top, but I'm hoping that Pacheco can get it done in this game that I think the Chiefs are finally going to win.
How much money do you think he spent on those tickets to have his family members watch him get outsnapped by Kareem Hunt on critical down and distances? Because that is not looking like a good investment.
That's tough. Yeah.
They could go ahead and clip this off, but if I'm looking right now, Boone, I'm just letting you know your team's bad. Your team is bad this week. Like, I'm sorry that your team is bad. Harmon's team is very
He's got
good.
Roma Dunze. He's got Roma Dunze. That's a great team. He's got Roma Dunze and Derrick Henry.
You're saying this. Yeah, we're definitely going to play the clip next week when I'm 3-0.
Yes.
Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen, all right, because the Detroit game is last. The Detroit-Baltimore game is last. You're going to be in staggeringly last place going into Monday night, and then we're all going to get really nervous because Derrick Henry's going to have a big game. But you know what? I still think I stand by it. I will plant the flag. I may live to regret that considering I have no wins. Let's get to some hurry-up offense. We'll bring out the clock. We'll put in some questions. 24 seconds up there and see how we can do on answering some of your big takes out there. We'll start with Joel saying, good morning, fellas. Need a hand at flex this week. Who would you start between James Conner at San Fran, Wan'Dale Robinson versus KC, or Jake Ferguson at Chicago? What do you think, Harmon?
Okay, no disrespect, but maybe a little bit of disrespect here to Wan'Dale and Jake Ferguson. James Conner doesn't belong in this conversation, okay? I know he had a little bit of he's losing some work to Trey Benson, whatever. Still think this is a guy you're starting every single week in fantasy.
Okay, look at that. All right, Monty coming in next. Monty with the question, PPR in flex, Pollard, Hubbard, Adams, Wilson. What do you think, Chris?
Out of that group, oh, man, that one is pretty tough. I mean, looking at Pollard, Hubbard, and Adams, and because Adams is going to have to go against a tough Eagles defense. Hubbard there. I think out of that group, I'll go Hubbard, but it is close because I'm not as confident with Garrett Wilson with Tyrod under center. So Hubbard against the Falcons with some injuries to their defense, I'll go there.
All right, the next question comes from D, and I'm not going to try and pronounce the rest of that. PPR flex spot. Should I start Jaylen Warren or Sutton? What do you think, Boone?
I'm actually going to go with Jaylen Warren here. He's played pretty well so far. I know he had a bit of an injury, but I don't think it's anything that's going to slow him down. And Aaron Rodgers is out here talking about how they need to throw him the ball even more. He's been the best player on their offense so far. I really like Warren, whereas Sutton's starting to lose a little work to some of the other receivers there. So give me Jaylen Warren.
All right, couple of YouTube questions coming in. The first one from Jawan, and Jawan is asking Debo or Ricky full PPR. Harmon, what do you think, Debo or Ricky full PPR?
Oh, my God. I think I've got those guys like legit back-to-back in the ranks. I think if you're just thinking about like I'm going to do the PPR like overthinking it here, so bear with me. Debo's getting more targets closer to the line of scrimmage. He's probably a better bet for receptions, whereas Ricky Pearsall has been getting those vertical looks down the field. So with addition to some running back work, I think you go with Debo.
Okay, we'll get one more in. Overcome asks Chris. All right, starting Seattle DBs missing. Start Olave against them or T. Higgins?
I would say I think I'd go Olave here because we don't know how Higgins' route or his route share and the concepts he's going to use on is going to change since he's been their perimeter receiver for the Bengals so far. Whereas Olave, we've seen a third of his snaps coming from the interior, and with Devon Witherspoon and also I believe their starting safety supposed to be out for the Seahawks today, I can see where Olave makes it ahead of Higgins this week.
We've spent a lot of time talking about the Sunday action, but you can't set your lineup without knowing what's happening on Monday as well. We've got a massive matchup on Monday Night Football. Are flowers blooming in year 3? We'll answer that for you next. Fantasy Football Live. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. I'm Jason Fitz, sitting with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. If you're just tuning in, where you been all morning? We're here every Sunday from 11:30 to 1, all the way up to kickoff, right on the dot. If you missed it, the big news so far today, Juwan Jennings is expected to be out versus at Arizona. According to Adam Schefter, we got the tweet this morning, Jennings will be out. That's the biggest fantasy news we've had over the course of the morning, and we're breaking down everything you need to know, which includes a massive Monday Night Football matchup, the sort of matchup you stop everything and you sit on the couch and you plan to watch, because Lions at Ravens, Ravens favored by 4.5, a beefy line considering these two teams, over under 53.5. This game obviously in Baltimore. Matt Harmon, give me something you've got your eye on in this matchup.
Yeah, I want to see if Zay Flowers can sustain the third-year leap that it looks like he has clearly made. Right now, him and Jackson Smith-Njigba, actually another third-year receivers. Back in my day, we actually used to wait till year 3 to see if a receiver actually broke out. We weren't like, oh, they haven't played 5 weeks into their rookie season, they're terrible. Like, we actually used to wait till year 3. It looks like Zay Flowers is making that year 3 leap. Him and Jackson Smith-Njigba, like in any wide receiver efficiency chart and usage chart, is up in what I like to call the Puka quadrant, which is the top right, where they're just getting insane usage and they're insanely efficient. That's what Zay Flowers has done so far. He's averaged 43% of his team's targets. That's second among all wide receivers. 4.27 yards per route run. That is third among all wide receivers that have run 40 plus routes this year. So he's been getting the usage. He's been crazy efficient. And I think there is some sustainability to this, because it looks like he's taken his game to another level. But this guy was really good in his first 2 seasons. He was 2nd and 7th in success rate versus zone coverage in reception perception his first 2 years. Like, the guy can get open. He can make plays with the ball in his hands. I do think other guys will pop throughout the course of the season, but Zay Flowers sustaining what looks like a third-year leap, I'm buying into it, even in this matchup against the Lions.
You've been really consistent and right on Zay in our time working together over the last couple of years. So it's good to see him take that leap. Chris, what do you got for us? What's something you got your eye on?
Is Jameson Williams just fancy MVS? I have some concerns about his usage through 2 weeks, because even in week 1, and I know that it was something of a headache for Lions fans watching Jared Goff get continually sacked and harassed behind the line of scrimmage, but the amount of targets that Jameson Williams got, just the 5 targets, that was 4th among the team. Behind it was Jahmyr Gibbs, it was Sam Laporta and ARSB sitting in front of him. And in week 2, let's say that things all went better for the Lions passing game, but he was tied for second with Sam Laporta. But remember, Sam Laporta only played half of the game. And so if we're only going to live in this 4 to 5 targets per game type of opportunity for Jameson Williams, where look at where you guys remember where we were drafting Jameson Williams around. We were drafting around George Pickens, who has similar upside. We were drafting around Zay Flowers, who now has completely dunked him like in terms of opportunity. So if this is going to be the volatile type of opportunity we're going to have to project for Jameson Williams on a week in, week out basis, is he going to be the guy that you're going to want to have on your roster? You're going to feel confident about starting each week, because after seeing his average depth of target right now, 33 yards just last week. And so how can we have that level of confidence for a guy that we're expecting to be a wide receiver too? So now against the Ravens, yes, I mean, that might be a unit you want to target for Jameson Williams' skill set. I mean, they have allowed the second highest passing success rate on throws of around 15 air yards or more. So Williams can definitely come down with 1 or 2 of those, and we just saw him do that in week 2. But is that something you want to hope for in your wide receiver 2 slot? So I'm not really feeling that, at least that approach to the fantasy football. So I'm hoping for some more opportunities for him, hoping for continued usage, maybe closer in the intermediate parts of the field. But until we see that, I am watching in this game to see if we get a better usage out of Williams in week 3.
Still learning who this new offense looks like, what this new offense looks like for the Lions. Boone, give me your thoughts.
I mean, I'm going to build off of what Chris just said. I feel like this Jared Goff point I'm about to make is like my TED Talk, because I feel like I've said it a bunch of times since the summer, but he has these insane splits when he's indoors versus outdoors. And last year it was like a perfect run out for him. He didn't have to go outside until week 9. He only had 3 games outside in total. On top of that, they had an easy schedule. He finished as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. This year, one of the harder schedules. This year, 2 of his first 3 outside. And I know that Packers defense is awesome that they went against in week 1, but I think this Ravens defense is pretty good too. And they are back outdoors on the road again here. Jared Goff averages 5 fewer fantasy points per game when he is outdoors versus indoors. So guys like Jameson Williams are going to have a much harder time producing in that kind of scenario. Whereas I think the top guys, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're going to be okay. But Jared Goff is a scary play when he is outside. So he's down in my QB2 ranks. I do not want to play him this week. I had him as a sit in my start, sit, stash, quit column. You want to sit him down this week for one of the streamer options, one of the guys we talked about earlier, Daniel Jones, someone from that segment. Play those guys over Goff this week.
All right, let's get to numbers do lie. That's right. Stats sometimes tell stories. So we'll let the boys take this. Matt, Chris, what do you got?
All right, Chris, let's talk about some numbers that do lie right now. And Chris Olave, wide receiver 41 in fantasy points. That is a lie right now. And look, if you've played fantasy football any level over the last couple of seasons, you know that there is a part of the season where we always arrive where every fantasy analyst says, you know, I think Chris Olave is actually a really good buy low. Well, guess what, folks? We're here at that point where I think Chris Olave, based on that fantasy finish, is a little bit of a buy low right now. Let's talk about what's the same from that when this happens every single season. It's that he is 10th in team target share right now, 30.7%. That's the same. He's always getting more usage than production. But this is why I think this year it is different. The usage is very different for Chris Olave. 9.5 air yards per target. He's getting a lot more layup looks this year. 2 end zone targets so far this year. We've never really seen him be a threat near the goal line. They're actually trying to put the ball in his hands when they get down to pay dirt. Also, the Saints, they've been kind of like a slow, archaic offense in the past in Olave's career. Right now, they're the fastest paced team in the NFL. Spencer Rattler's looking aight. And I love the way Chris Olave is being used in Kellen Moore's offense, moving him around, weaponizing him off motion. So, no, it is not the same old story as every single year when we say Chris Olave is a buy low. Might not happen this week against a tough Seahawks secondary, but at some point, I think Olave is going to establish himself as a every week starter in fantasy football, even though that number looks like a lie. Chris, who are you highlighting as a number that is lying to the people out there right now?
I'm going to go ahead and point to Marvin Harrison's box scores and say that is a lie. Now, of course, listening to both you and Boone talk about the, I would say, disappointment for Kyler Murray from a quarterback standpoint, but seeing where Marvin Harrison has been used on the field so far through 2 weeks, I'm encouraged. And so while we're hoping for more production, I think the way that they've been deploying him on the field should lead to that in the future. Because think about how he was being used last season with Petsing calling the shots like for the Cardinals passing game. A lot of that sacrificial X receiver type of role that you've harped on for quite a while. But now in the first couple of weeks, average depth of target went from 13.2 air yards down to 9.5 in week 2. Also, his slot rate went up as well. 22.2% routes from the slot in week 1, up to almost 30% in week 2. These are the things that we were hoping to see more out of a big-bodied frame wide receiver like Marvin Harrison when he came out of Ohio State. And since we didn't get that in year 1, seeing that at least started to become a larger part of his game here in year 2, those are the indications. Those are the green flags for me that show that the highlight to me that this is where we can start to see more easier production come for Harrison Jr. in the near future. So let's make sure him and Kyler Murray can get on the same page. And like we were just discussing earlier, I mean, that's to come here in the near future. And especially this week against the 49ers, that might be a little bit of an impediment. But after that, with the way Harrison's being used so far, better days ahead for Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'm with you on that one, Chris. Now let's bring the whole group back together for little bold predictions for week 3.
That's right. All right. We're going to go around the horn quick here. I want each of you to give me a bold prediction for this weekend. We'll start with Boone because you two just did so much heavy lifting. Justin Boone, bold prediction that week 3. What do you got?
I talked about Love and Roma Dunze earlier. I think this week his quarterback has a huge fantasy game. Caleb Williams, a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And people forget, for as bad as he was last season, he actually did this 3 times last year. So it's not like he's incapable. We know the changes that were made there. It was going to take a little bit of time. But the biggest thing, he's going up against this Cowboys defense. They got some injuries. They've just been downright bad. Caleb Williams is going to have a huge game and one of the highest projected point totals of the week. He is going to account for a lot of them.
Matt Harmon, bold prediction for this week.
Panthers rookie wide receiver Tedero McMillan finishes inside the top 10 wide receivers in week 3. I think this guy's been playing great football in isolation. He's crushing it the same way that he did as a prospect on these big in-breaking routes. A lot of digs, some outs as well, but mostly digs and crossers over the middle of the field. He had a 40-yard reception against the Cardinals where he just played great in the open field. He looks exactly like the player I thought he'd be in the NFL. The Panthers are having to throw the ball a lot because they've been trailing. I don't think that's going to change with the way their defense has been playing. I think they'll fall behind against the Falcons, and the Falcons are missing A.J. Terrell, their top cover corner. So if you've got McMillan this week, I don't know if he's definitely going to finish top 10, but he's definitely somebody I'd be starting.
Chris Allen, what do you got? Bold prediction.
If you got Michael Pittman on your roster, you should be looking for buku points from Pittman here in week 3. I talked about him earlier in the Lock It In segment. His matchup against the Titans secondary is one that we should be targeting. We've seen top wide receivers, whether it was Cortland Sutton, Devonta Adams, even Puka Nacua as well, find a decent amount of success against the Titans secondary. And the way that he's being used across the middle of the field and where Daniel Jones has shown a propensity to throw, sets up well for a wide receiver 1 like Michael Pittman. So we've seen him more in that wide receiver 2 range, but in this matchup here, especially in PPR leagues, I think him winding up in the top 10, that's where I'm seeing him for week 3.
Yeah, I'll just say this. Daniel Jones accounts for at least 4 total touchdowns in this game. There's my bold prediction for it. All right, let's get to some of the questions that are happening around there. Hurry up offense, 24 seconds on the clock. And we will read you some of these. Let's see. Judkins, Quentin Johnson, Tony Franklin, PPR, TD heavy? That's the question. Harmon, what do you got?
I think I'd go with Quinshon Judkins there, which, I mean, good Lord. Like, Browns running back against Packers defense, not great, but Troy Franklin, I want to see one more week of him in that role before I think he's a fantasy starter. And Quentin Johnson, I don't think he's catching a lot of passes today with the guy most likely to be covered by Patrick Surtain. So I think you go Judkins.
All right, let's throw 25 seconds back on the clock here. Steve Rinaldi says, Jordan Love or Daniel Jones? Chris Allen, what do you think?
I'll still go Daniel Jones here. While I do like how efficient the rest of the passing game offense has been for the Packers so far, I can still see a scenario where once they get into the red zone type area, it's going to be more of Josh Jacobs taking away from a guy like Jordan Love. And with no Jaden Reed, let's say at the very least a hampered Tucker Kraft in this game, and we're relying on Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs, and the rest of them, give me Daniel Jones.
All right, next up we've got Tonyo, who says A.J. Brown or Drake London. What do you think? We'll go to Boone on this one.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, we're going back to Drake London here. I mean, A.J. Brown is always capable of a huge game, but Drake London, people are kind of worried about him. I'm not. He had a bit of an injury at a tough matchup. Week 1, we saw the usage. He's going to have a fantastic season, and it'll start today probably.
All right, I love this. We'll go to Buzzard next. We had time left on the clock. Buzzard Nest says Brees, Mason, Warren, Ramondre, or Downs. What do we think on this one? We'll go to Harmon on this one.
I mean, I guess we only get to pick one here. I think that and Warren, I'm assuming, is Jalen Warren, not Tyler Warren. So I'll go Jordan Mason here. He's going to get the workhorse role. I think the offense can be stable with Carson Wentz behind center, as weird as that is to say. Again, workhorse player for a good offense facing a bad defense. That's the way to go.
All right, so the next one comes from Sir Barkley, who asked, and I'm going to send this to Chris because Chris was big on him, Ayamanor or Judy or Algier, PPR's question. So we've got a little bit, we're putting you on the spot for Ayamanor, Judy, or Algier.
Out of that group, even in this game against, I would still say Ayamanor. Algier, we're kind of hoping that there's going to be a blowout and we're going to see some more touches go Tyler Allgeier's way. So give me Ayamanor, just given the amount of opportunities earned over the past couple of weeks. It's tough. It's close, but I think I'll go with a rookie wide receiver.
Look at some of that. Look at some of that love coming in for the Titans. There we go. All right, that does it for this week's edition. We are back here next Sunday at 11:30. Obviously, hanging at 11:30 Eastern. We get you all the way up to kickoff. We're around all week. You can wake up with Yahoo Sports Daily and catch the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast live. That's all on Yahoo Fantasy YouTube, also on YahooSports.tv and wherever you get your TV network. Spend every waking hour with us 24 hours a day on the Yahoo Sports Network. Good luck in your fantasy matchups. I know you're going to crush it. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll see you next week.